John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Rick Byers, who is the MPP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound and has been on the show many times before, and I'm sure before the next election will be on many times again because things are exciting at Queen's Park. If you haven't read the headlines, well, just read the headlines. Rick, what's it like in a legislature right now?
Well, we're about to go back next week, February 20th. So right after Family Day, after spending time with family, we'll be with, I guess, our government family. And back to the adventure at Queen's Park. It is at times an adventure, no question. But, I will say, aside from the show at times, we do focus on getting things done. And in all the areas, and but at the same time, there's other things that come up, and certainly all part of the show, David. No question.
Rick, I have had a lot of politicians on this show, and you're this show, and you're the first person to use that image as what happens at Queen's Park. So I think, with all respect, there's a truth to that, but at the same time, there is a serious undertone an undertaking as you suggest as well.
Well, it's interesting. I've been there just over a year and a half now, and reflect back on all over the place. There's all the history, and it's a beautiful building and whatnot. But the process of getting legislation passed, I don't know. It feels like it hasn't changed too much since 1867 at times. Which, I don't know. I again, I'm what I call, I'll say, an outcomes guy. So, I'd like to see the product of that challenging process, and it is challenging at times, but that's what I'm focused on. And at the same time, look, the process is what it is. There's, whether it's in the legislature and question period and debates and committees and all the stuff around it. It is focused on the process of getting legislation passed and having debate and whatnot. So but at times it is a show, no question. So looking forward to doing it again.
Speaking of show, I have to tell you, I'm an honest person. I'm a good person. I do try to do the right thing. And I went in and I updated the registration of my vehicle because I was within that 6-month window, because I looked at the sticker. I'm cleaning off the truck, and I looked at the sticker. I said, "Oh, gee, yeah, I can. That's due for renewal. I better check that out." And I got a shock. This was before the most recent government announcement, by the way. What happened was that I went in and entered all the information I was required to enter, and this message popped up to say, "Yeah, you're done." And I'm thinking, I should have had to type in my insurance details and the number of kilometers that are on the vehicle. But no, all it wanted was the fact that I entered the right numbers from the vehicle permit. And I'm thinking, something's changed. How does the government know I have valid insurance? Okay. And then this week, as we're taping this, the week before the legislature goes back, the government makes the announcement that, hey, it's going to be an automatic process. So maybe I got caught in the beginning of the automatic process. We have insurance. That drivers have insurance because there's obviously some interchange of information between insurers and the government, which is not inappropriate. But I thought to myself, Coincidence? I don't know.
Well, I think the whole initiative there, and you're right, you may have well have been right at the beginning, but the announcements was I was encouraged that, that it'll because once the fees were eliminated, I think that was the motivation certainly for making sure you had your registration, and most of the time you're going in directly to Service Ontario and whatnot, and trying to find a way to make that whole process of registering your vehicle more efficient makes sense, certainly. And so we'll see what the new system, how it works. I mean, obviously, if there's any issues, as you heard, on your registration, be they fees or tickets or otherwise, then it won't automatically renew, and you'll have to deal with those as you should.
Sure.
So, but you raise a good point. Presumably they'll want to make sure that there's proper insurance there, and how's that part of it working to have the registration done appropriately. But there you go. You were right at the start of the process, David.
I must have been. It was kind of a shock to me, and I also know, because I bought a new truck in the last 6 months, that there is a parallel process for new vehicle registration that the car dealers are dealing with, that is having the bugs worked out of it. Because I won't go into the details, but they did share with me that was going on as well, and so that may well also be part of it. So that instead of passing the money over into with your hot little hands into the welcome and receiving arms of the dealer or the seller, you don't have to worry as much about all the paperwork that has to be done.
Well, I think it's exactly right. Look, we want to make sure that registration information is properly received and accounted for and held in the system. Absolutely. But at the same time, make it as straightforward for people as possible, because everyone's busy, and it's all. I remember myself, and I got to go in there now, and where what's the lineup going to be like, and on and on and on. So, hopefully we're making that side of it more straightforward, but at the same time making sure the system is effective.
Rick, you are probably too young to remember these days, but I do. And that is the days when you had annual plates, and the deadline for your annual plate was the end of February. And people would line up for hours to get their new plates and their new registration. And you got a new plate every year, and they alternated between blue and white, and you always knew which color you were supposed to have. And I remember those days very, very well. And then we went to permanent plates with stickers. Now, totally different.
There we go.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see the transition that has happened over the years.
Well, that's a great point you make. The evolution of that whole system. And I'll confess, I didn't buy a car right away when I hit 16, so maybe it was a while later. But having the same date. You look back on these things in hindsight, and you say, scratching my head, say, why would governments ever do it? But happily, they did evolve the system. So it was on your birthday, so it spread the line out, and we don't need a new plate every year. It's a sticker. So it's interesting. There are some good things that happen in the process of government, and hopefully this will be one of them too. When people can look back down the road and say, "Gee, remember when you had to actually put a sticker on your plate? And now it's done automatically." So hopefully it works well. Okay.
Well, before we leave that, I got one interesting story to share with you. This comes from actually Chief Ambrose, who shared this with. At a speech he made publicly recently. The government's put a lot of money into the automatic license plate recognition system, and those systems are not cheap. And you'll see the little four heads hanging off the seal or the roofs of police cruisers. And he was saying that he was driving a vehicle of a family member who was deceased, but it was part of the estate, so he just drove it in order to keep it going. And the person who had driven it had given up their license prior to their passing, several years prior to their passing, but had still kept the vehicle registered. Well, the vehicle was caught in the automatic license plate recognition system, and it went crazy. So the chief had to explain the situation. But that's how sensitive and how accurate, well, how accurate and inaccurate the system is. It's, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever information is in the system is what it says. And but they got it fixed. But he said, don't be fooled. We know.
Well, it's interesting for him to see it firsthand too.
Oh, absolutely.
Have the system tested.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Very good.
So,
very good.
Scofflaws beware. You may not you may not get caught the first time, but eventually the systems will catch up to you. So, Rick, just remember to renew your license plate, your licensed vehicle, your vehicle registration.
Absolutely. Yeah, will do. May 29th is my birthday, so a few months yet.
Sure.
Hopefully the system will be up and running then. Yeah.
We hope. Yeah. And even now it's very simple. Because I think the system is in transition. So, well, I wanted to actually riff off this a bit because there was an announcement the day before we were actually recording this about road tolls. And I'm puzzled about that one because the only toll road we've got in Ontario is the 407, as the Minister of Highways or Minister of Transportation very clearly said. That's not within our purview. It's a toll road. It's privately owned and so on. But what's the purpose of saying no tolls other than preemptive strike? Is that what it was about, or is this just sort of saying, "Hey, we're promising to save you money"?
Well, I think there's perhaps both are related to that. Recall that on the east side of the GTA, government did take off tolls on, I think it's 412 and 418, if I'm not mistaken, that connected into 407 over there, and so they were taken off. And I think that part of, and there was an announcement also about carbon taxes, which you may, a referendum. I think part of what this has been a difficult period for all Ontarians with costs. Going back and the inflation that very high in 2023. Hopefully it continues to crest down. Hopefully we see the cost for folks lowered and interest rates come down. But as part of that, government's been very keen to do what it can to participate in relieving costs for Ontarians. And gas tax is part of that and other things that we've done. So I think part of the messaging here was in terms of looking forward, it's an opportunity to say, hey, we're not going to put in new costs for Ontarians, and we want to be clear about that. And hey, look, politics and government go hand in hand, and I think relatedly, as an opportunity to kind of, when this comes to a vote in the legislature, it'd be interesting to see what the independents might do and the opposition might do. So, that's part of it as well. But fundamentally here, we're trying to reinforce the message that we do care about the costs that Ontarians are paying, and we want to make sure that we give them some certainty on this, one element of what might arise otherwise might arise in the future.
Well, it's interesting because a bill can be revoked, or a bill can be the next government, whoever that might be, if it's not your party, could revoke the act and start to charge tolls for whatever reason. I mean, people don't like toll roads, for sure, but at the same time, the commitment could be revoked for whatever reason. So it's when the government says we're going to make it legislation. Well, legislation it can be changed as well. So we shall see.
No, of course it can, but I mean, I think that's a more, and I think this is part of it too. But listen. There's, of course, this is a symbolic element to it, but certainly want to reinforce the message that our government, not that others might in the future change it. I mean, look, there's been a requirement since the 90s on any new tax required a referendum. Well, as taxes put in by the previous government, they were able to make a legislative change to allow it. So you're absolutely right. government at the time can make. But it's part of our ongoing message, which is not unimportant, to kind of reassure Ontarians that we're going to continue to try and do whatever we can to, help them manage the costs of this tough period that we're all going through.
Well, I know that if you want to get people's dander up, or want to find a niche, just say 3 numbers, 407, and people will react. That's for sure. It was just an interesting. And the other thing it may have something to do with, and this is speculation on my part, is that John Tory, as I recall, proposed road tolls for the Gardiner and the 407 as part of his. This would be a couple of years ago, as a way of fixing the Toronto budget hole or budget chasm that they had, and that's been resolved between the city and Ontario by this new agreement with Mayor Chow and Premier Ford have made to upload the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner to the province, and then and that's just sort of saying, okay, we're not going to go that road with tolls. So it was interesting.
It's a good point you made. Yeah, and I think the difference between Gardiner and Don Valley Parkway and 407, for example, is if you're traveling on Gardiner and Don Valley Parkway, they're essentially the only highway route. So there's no choice there. And so I think they reinforce the message. You're absolutely right that there won't be any tolls in the future with this government under those whole roads that are now operated by the provincial government. 407, at least, listen, hey, you've got the choice. And that was one of the, if you want a quicker route, if 401's busy, you can choose to go on that route. So I think that you made an important point here with those highways being now managed by the province. That's part of the messaging as well.
Sure. Well, we shall see what we shall see. Highways and roads and and keeping the roads fixed and keeping the potholes fixed is a major job of anyone who is in politics. Anyone who is in politics. But that's a whole other issue. We're not into an election yet and won't be for a couple of years. I wanted to also talk to you about Roma. I've asked, and this is an equal opportunity matter, because I've raised this with all of the mayors who've been on the show, their experiences at Roma. And you were on the other side of the table, because you were sort of across the table from the various municipalities who were making their cases to your minister, I guess. And I know that Owen Sound was looking at community in need funding with the Minister of Health, because all of this is the medical funding, and we don't qualify here in the city because we're not rural, but all the municipalities around are rural for doctor recruitment. So what was your experience at Roma?
Well, I find the first time I went through these conferences, whether it was Roma or AMO in the early fall, I must say, the whole prospect of having literally dozens and dozens of meetings in a matter of a couple of days, I thought, my goodness, this is overwhelming. But honestly, it is a really efficient way to have issues raised and discussed between parties in an efficient way. I use that word. Everyone's given 15 minutes, and which means you get right to the point. And these are very productive meetings. You're not, if everyone was given 30 minutes or 45, you know what? The same content would be discussed, but there will be all sorts of side chatter. So I've been really impressed, and also really impressed with the active participation of Grey Bruce municipalities. Very, very active. And I think that's fantastic. And whether it's Owen Sound or many of the other municipalities who participated at Roma. And for me, there was 2 parts of it. In my role as parliamentary secretary of the Minister of Finance, yes, I was taking meetings on many municipalities directly myself. Minister had his own meetings. PA Stephen Crawford, the other PA for Finance, had his. So between all of us, we had, I think, about 25 meetings in total. But I was also able, when I could, to sit in on meetings that Grey Bruce municipalities had with ministers or parliamentary assistants to hear directly what they had to say. And whether it was the Owen Sound into finance or several others with the Minister of Health, on and on, I found those very productive as well. Because I can be there directly to hear the dialogue, and B, allows me to understand for sure, clearly what the priorities are of municipalities that are involved in this area, and do whatever I can to follow up. It was great, and I must say, very impressive on all parts. And I'll say last thing is, it's not a show either. And to sit in on those meetings and talk to ministers and parliamentary assistants afterwards, they found it very productive. And I can tell they're not just ticking a box and saying, "Oh, well, we met with those folks." No. They understand the issue. Can you always follow up and agree? No, but at least you've heard directly, and at least there's a commitment to do what you can. So I've been really, really impressed with those meetings on all sides of the table.
Well, let me ask a bit of a supplementary on this one, because I've always wondered what happens afterwards. Now, you've said that, okay, there's probably some affirmation around the table with the staff from the ministry and so on. But what about follow-up? Who does follow-up on this? Because let me give you a case in point. As court security has been an issue with Owen Sound and on their agenda since Ruth Lovell Stanners was mayor. And that's that's going back a while. And when we got the new courthouse, the city is responsible for the security, but at huge cost. And I've heard the arguments. I won't go into them, but is anybody following up on that issue or any issue? Do you follow up on them?
I do, and as I said, being there directly to hear the conversation and hear, that is a very effective way for me to learn the issues. And I do follow up on things. So the matter of the City of Owen Sound raised was a really important one. There, have a lot of services that are provided to the broader community. On the healthcare side, do they get the same funding platform, et cetera, et cetera? So, A, to hear that argument made directly is great, so I understand it, and B, allows me to follow up. Now, look, these things, like anything, there's ripple effects, and so while every issue looks to be, have great merit, certainly, there's others, okay, if we do this here, what are the impacts more broadly, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I can't speak to security in the Owen Sound Courthouse, but certainly these other matters, it's very, very helpful to hear it directly and do whatever I can to see whether we get a decision. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it's quicker. And not all the time, certainly, can the issue be agreed upon. But, because this is one of the challenges in governments. There's so much, peripheral noise and chatter and this and that. But when you get to the facts of the situation, that's what's great. And let's see what we can do to get a decision, one way or the other.
After my conversations with your predecessor, Bill Walker, one of the things I think that he and I agreed on is that one of the roles of the MPP is to keep the issues before the public service and to in the best way possible. And he was in opposition as well as government. And I think you're saying the same thing, is that is what you have to do, is to keep those issues before the public service, before cabinet, as to the best of your ability. And I guess the frustration for most people is, why does it take so long?
Yeah, no, I understand. Why can't we just, I can order a coffee from Tim Hortons in a couple of minutes. Why can't government, be as efficient as they are? And look, I get that. And this is part of and I touched on it briefly. I think the fundamental issue, well, look, having been in the commercial world for my career, there's a lot of difference between that environment, for example, where decisions can be made by a group of managers quickly, and government, where it's a whole different paradigm. And I think fundamentally, there's so many other elements. Well, as I said before, any individual issue might make terrific sense on as you hear it. Well, there's the ripple effects, the subsequent impacts. There's the including funding, including, okay, if we make this decision, what other communities are impacted? And how would they be impacted? And what would the resulting cost be? And there's all these important issues that have to be frankly addressed. And so that's why it takes a long time. And just think of, okay, we've had the meeting with Owen Sound now. We'll just multiply that by literally hundreds. And so that's the challenge of there are 440 municipalities, I believe, in Ontario, and each of them will have many arguments or proposals to put forward. So there's the volume, there's the implications for other issues, there's the funding, there's a whole bunch of reasons why it does take long. And I understand that it's frustrating. Look, we'd all like things to be done quickly, but at the same time, want decisions to be made that are the right decisions and hold up over time. So that's why, and you're absolutely right. It's one of my roles to keep interacting with the ministers and others to see what we can get for our community.
Yeah. Well, look, speaking of good stuff, and you did get a motion passed through the House around isotope support. This was back in October, and it was unanimous, which meant that you got the blessing of even the NDP.
Yes, small miracles do happen. But I was, well, look, and this was my first private. There's something called private member bills or motions, and it's the opportunity for any individual MPP to put forward something which is literally dealt with by the legislature. And I was so pleased and frankly interested in what I reached out to Bruce, and I had lots of conversations about ideas that may come up. But in talking to Bruce Power, they said, look, here's one thing we'd like to do is have the medical isotopes included in the life sciences health strategy for the province. And okay, what does all that mean? As I met with Bruce Power to understand more directly where things sit with medical isotopes, it was so exciting to see and hear what Bruce Power is doing. And there's a bit of a link for me going back in time, because when I was in my financial career, I did some work for then Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. Mm-hmm. And they medical isotopes are byproducts of the CANDU nuclear process and have been used for decades and decades to help sterilize medical equipment that literally goes around the world. And this is a fact that is it's not high profile, but this is one of the byproducts of nuclear power, which is really exciting, and where Canada is a leader. So AECL, Atomic Energy of Canada, that in the past years haven't been able to continue, and they were the developers of CANDU and what they've evolved. But Bruce Power took over production of the medical isotopes, and that was great for them to do. But the evolution that I found so exciting on the medical isotopes is that things are evolving. So it won't just involve the sterilization of medical equipment. That'll continue. And Canada has some extraordinary share of the market here, of something like 60% or something. But also what's very exciting is the impact this will have on the treatment of cancer potentially going forward. And it can potentially revolutionize the treatment of cancer, these medical isotopes. So very, very exciting, and happening in our Grey Bruce community. Bruce Power operates over in near Kincardine, and of course, as we know, they have big other contractors here in Owen Sound. So it was a very, very exciting development, and I was pleased to have that motion put to the House, and also very pleased the NDP, to their credit, and opposition supported it as well.
Yeah, it was unanimous. It was, and hey, it doesn't get any better than that in politics, when everybody says, yeah, we agree.
It's interesting. having been at this just over a year and a half now, I mean, I frankly wish we did more of that discussion because, look, partisan politics is part of the whole process, et cetera, et cetera. But this is where, and this is the side that, Ontarians don't see much, is, hey, you know what? We're all in this, all members of the House are in this, frankly, to make the province we live in a better place. Now, everyone will have, each party has, and individuals have different views on how that might happen. But it is great when there is alignment or agreement at some level, and it was great to see firsthand. And I sure appreciated it on this motion, and we'll see what happens. And but it's back to partisanship next week, and there'll be lots of finger pointing and all that stuff.
That's okay, Rick, because hey, I got more to talk about. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. And we've still got things to converse about. Friends, I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking, and we will be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
This is Rogers TV.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience. And with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles. Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now. This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that. He'll be shining snow snakes and mudcats to the end of his days.
On Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Rick Byers, who is the MPP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, and we're having a conversation about just about everything. Rick, welcome back.
Great. Thanks, David. Great to be back.
Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, at least people outside of Grey Bruce perhaps, is that we do have public transit. And that public transit was partially funded by the province, or largely funded by the province. And I'm thinking particularly of GHOST, the Grey-Owen Sound transit system, which was an Owen Sound to Guelph line, but also Grey County. And there was the Grey County system was the GTR.
Railroad Transit.
And both of those, the county had to say, we can't afford this, and GHOST will not be, the subsidy runs out and it's done. However, there's I heard in the City of Owen Sound Operations Committee meeting that there is great interest from Wellington Dufferin for the continuation of GHOST. And, the staff was saying, no, the Ministry of Transportation is saying the funding's done. Is there anything that can be done to save these transit systems, these public transit systems that, okay, it's not the TTC, but or Metrolinx, but it is ours, and it does have riders.
No, totally agree. And I was very excited to see this service develop over the past few years. And I think COVID in part triggered it to help people get around and whatnot. And I'm a big fan of transit. I mean, I sat on the boards of both TTC and Metrolinx for several years, and so I saw the big, intense urban transit systems and how they work. And in fact, I set up conversations between the Grey County and Metrolinx to see, because way past there used to be bus service from Orangeville up to Owen Sound, and hey, gee, is there a way to get that back, et cetera, et cetera. But I think what's great about what's happened the past few years with the, this call it rural transit network, is that you have now an experience. One of the important things with transit is, what's the ridership? What's the, so in setting these things up, that's the tough part. Gee, will people get on the buses or not on their schedules, and will it work? Well, now there's history there. And yes, the funding is scheduled, I believe, next year. That's the decision point. But there is now ridership history at all these routes. Let's look at the system. Did it achieve what we wanted to? Is there partnerships with the various counties and municipalities? Is there a funding model going forward that works? One of the things is, you can get from Owen Sound to Orangeville for $5. And, if a bus was running, it would be sure more than $5. Should we look at the fares that are charged? Can that be part of it too? So certainly from my point of view, I'm going to ask these questions and see what I can do to keep that service continuing, because I'm a big fan of it. And I thought it was a great initiative by the county, supported by the province and municipality. So let's try and keep it going.
Well, what was really interesting is that in the meeting, and you can watch it on the City of Owen Sound website, is that there were two users in the room, and they said, it's great. My kid goes back and forth to university in Guelph on this, and the other person who has a disability said, I can't drive, but I can go to Toronto and come back using this. It's great. And Wellington Dufferin was saying that people have gotten jobs because of these transit systems, and so there is a real need for them. And no, they'll never make money. I don't think there's a public transit. You've been on Metrolinx. You know the economics of transit. Is there a public transit system in the world that actually makes a profit or breaks even?
Well, I don't know about the world, and if you go over to Tokyo and ride there, I mean, it's transit fundamentally is based on the density of traffic that moves on the systems. I will say that the Toronto systems, be it TTC or Metrolink, do have one of the highest, when I was on the boards, one of the highest rates of fare recovery, in North America anyway. And so, it was about, my recollection, like 85 or so percent. So what that means is the ridership, the fare was covering 85% of the system's costs, which, this is where transit makes such enormous sense. Is it 100%? No, but A, you're providing great service to the riders on the system, and B, that 15% share that's picked up by government, in absolute, they're not small numbers, but it's a pretty efficient way to provide a good service. And that's another reason why, our government, I'm very, very pleased we have a long-term view of infrastructure, and transit's a big part of it. We're going to make the biggest transit expansion in the history of the province. It's $70 billion over the next 10 years. Now, that is an urban GTA-driven initiative, but back to your point, one of the things argument will make is, excuse me, folks, we're a rural community with now a transit history. Let's not only have our transit investment focused on the big cities. It needs to continue to happen in our communities. And so, but it's great to see that overall emphasis on transit continue.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be interesting to see, because transit is a very, very, it's a touchy issue. It's a sensitive issue. It's a personal issue. and it's an essential issue for a variety of reasons. So, hey, certainly look forward to further conversation on transit, Rick. I think that's a good to hear that you're going to have conversations with the people that matter, because that's your job.
So, and I can bring that perspective directly, and you're absolutely right. That is my job, and I'll get it that people, oh well, you know, but I'll continue. I'll keep pushing, and unless I also understand the county. Look, this has been a tough time for everyone in managing their budgets, and certainly I've met with the warden about it, and understand that some of the challenges they face, and their decision to withdraw funding for the transit over the next budget. And I get that there's pressures everywhere, but you know, that's part of the tough choices governments have to make. But certainly from my point of view, I'm going to do whatever I can to help keep that system going.
Yes, speaking of tough choices and tough times, I've been in Grey County for nearly 25 years, and I do not recall the level of tax increases across the board that I have seen. And to have the politicians come on the show and talk about their budgets and the reasons for these massive property tax increases are often, well, as one of them said to me, price of gas, price of materials, or price of oil and the price of materials, because when you start talking about asphalt, it's petroleum, and the price of materials has just gone through the roof. Oh, and insurance, none of which are in your purview either, and you're probably suffering the same at the provincial level, seeing the same issues.
No, it's all these things have a ripple effect, and inflation has a lag factor in budgets, and so even though the numbers for inflation, they're down increase of 3%, which is much different than when they peaked at 8%. Nevertheless, those cost factors, now are into the budgets of municipalities and counties. And so no question they're and you're absolutely right. The level of tax increases, and we heard it at Roma, everyone's really trying to keep it less than double digits, put it that way. And it's never easy decisions that are made. And so that's the environment we're in, whether it's at municipalities or, provincial government, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the municipal and provincial levels of government are the ones that operate programs. Federal government doesn't operate much. And so they're more of a funds transfer level of government. So the operating entities at, municipalities and province are the ones that see this burden directly, and that's the challenge. So, that's ongoing work to try and see if can we do it better? Can we do it cheaper? How can we? Of necessity, you've got to ask those questions, and at the end of the day, costs sometimes do have to be passed on, and that's the environment we're in. So hopefully, we see some of that environment get better in the second half of this year.
Well, I'm sure if Ian Boddy were here, he would make the point he's made on many occasions that municipalities are a creation of the province anyway.
Yep.
Which is true. I mean, let's be honest, the municipalities exist at the behest of the province. So it's a joint effort.
But still, I think there's a couple, in addition to, no, that's absolutely right. And frankly, I think in my mind, as I've gone through pre-budget meetings and Roma and otherwise, kind of say, should we be looking at this arrangement between provinces and municipalities, and to seeing whether we could make changes to make it, improve it. And I think that's a question that I sure heard many times. I think the other part of what's happened as well, there are all sorts of, the homelessness, mental health, opioid situation, which has hit municipalities, communities all across the province. There's an example, if you look back 40 years, didn't exist, if at all, or not to nearly the same degree, right? So that's the other thing that's happening, is the evolution of society and the issues that are on the table now. Many of them are ones that didn't exist before. So should we look at, and they often have joint responsibility. There's no, if you look at some program, waste collection, clearly in municipalities, court, but there are many, many other services, whether some joint municipal, provincial involvement. So is it time we looked at those? Who knows? And this is the kind of input happy to get from Mayor Body and others, and see if there's a different way we can do things.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, because there seems to have, I don't like to be overly optimistic, but there seems to have been a breakthrough between Premier Ford and Mayor Chow regarding Toronto. But Toronto is an exceptional case because it exists in its own legislative existence, unlike the rest of the other 444 or 443 municipalities across Ontario. But I really appreciate that the fact that this is recognized, because this is funding is the key part, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next session of the legislature, and dare I say, the next budget. Speaking of which, when do you have any idea when we might get the next budget? April, perhaps?
Well, fiscal year for the province of Ontario is March 31st, and typically the budget is tabled, before that, right before that time. So, I can't give a date, don't know a date, but it's certainly in the springtime. And I've been on, as part of my role as parliamentary assistant, pre-budget consultations. In fact, the first one in the province was in Owen Sound in November. And it was great to have that discussion, and been to many other communities myself, as has the minister and the PA Crawford. So, and as the finance committee has also traveled around. So we've gotten this feedback, relating to the previous issue on municipalities, heard that all over the province, and other, community organizations that presented to us. We're in a challenging environment, as we say, as we were talking. And so this will be part of the budget planning process for sure. That's ongoing right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things speaking of money, one of the other things that I think that is first and foremost on people's minds is healthcare. And I'm working in Durham right now, and I know that down in Durham, people are really concerned that their ER is closing on weekends or overnight. The same is true in Chesley. I have friends down in Clinton where the ER has been closed every night for 4 years. And okay, it's a staffing issue. That's what everyone says. But today, and I'm speaking of as we're recording this, the OMA has come out saying the system is beyond crisis. And something's got to change. But what?
Well, we've been changing a whole bunch of things in the past while to try and increase the supply of health human resources, be it doctors, nurses, PSWs, others. And because that's fundamentally the challenge we have, is as a resourcing problem, which was, long time. Look, this is like anything of these major problems, has there been triggers for a long, long time past, but it doesn't matter. We have to try and deal with it. Now we're opening 2 medical schools. We've expanded postgraduate and graduate places in throughout universities in Ontario. The Georgian College, the nursing program will be graduating. So on the staffing side, we're going to have increasing the supply of healthcare professionals in the province. Also, we've been licensing more quickly from international sources and expanding the scope of what pharmacies can do. So we have been substantially expanding, these types of programs for a while now. None of them are, staffing from the graduates will be a couple years down the road. We get it. So we have to keep going in the meantime. But let's face it, COVID was a huge trigger point for 2 years there and we're still frankly in the recovery of that. And part of that has led to the staffing decisions been made by doctors and nurses, others, to say, you know what, I'm burnt out and going to leave. And all that's part of what's going on here too. So we have to recover from that. But there have been great improvements. The surgical backlog, which was immediately in place after COVID, is now back to pre-COVID levels. That's a huge positive. Are there strains in the system? Sure there are. And Durham and Chesley, the closures there, and Clinton ongoing. And we're going to try and do what we can to address those. But I've had many conversations with Lisa Thompson, with the Ontario Health folks about that situation. Hanover as well, the closures there put strains there. But we've got a new hospital that opened in Markdale, okay? And that's an important positive, and will take some of the, I know has been taking some of the pressure off the Durham, because that's 26 kilometers away. Is 20, well, depending on it's a manageable. There's an access there that is improved that didn't exist before. So there are positives happening as well. We're going to continue to work on the system to make sure that folks have the healthcare they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was interested to also see that you touched on it a moment ago about homelessness. And one of the things that we have here in Owen Sound is, I think it's across Grey Bruce, homelessness challenges. But it was Chief Ambrose who shared that the police service here has received funding for specialized care for mobile crisis response team. And which will allow trained crisis workers to respond along with police officers. And he shared some statistics which are quite remarkable, that when you can address issues with a crisis worker, they don't end up in the ER, and they don't need to have a police response, which saves tons of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it provides better outcomes. And so this is a great example of how the thinking in this has evolved. And, our government has the first one to have a Minister of Mental Health, involved in his department, Minister Thibault, to deal with those. And he's a professional in this field. And it's fantastic to see the direct result of this on the ground and in the field with Chief Ambrose, seeing the impact it's having on the cost of providing that service and on its effectiveness. So it's a great example of the evolution of thinking, and a great credit to all parties involved to have it, so this is the kind of thinking we want to keep going with. And are there other things that we can try and fix, and be it healthcare, or policing, or otherwise? The challenges are always there, and creative thinking and parties working together is such an important part of it. In this day and age, we always hear about the divisions, the divisiveness of it all, but it's great to see parties working together. You mentioned the City of Toronto. There you have Olivia Chow and NDP, and Mayor Ford, Progressive Conservative. They got together and got something done. And to me, that's a great example of, let's put aside the differences, work together, and get things done. So as your Owen Sound Police example is a perfect example of that. It's great to see.
Well, another one that Chief Ambrose shared was the bail compliance and violent offenders team, which is nearly $1 million for over 3 years to prevent violent offenders and repeat offenders from committing serious crimes. One of the things that I know has rather annoyed people is that, it's a revolving door at the jail, right? And this will, we hope, and it's optimistic, hopefully will resolve some of that and keep people who shouldn't be on the street off the street.
Absolutely. And that's another great, because you're right, you read about it all the time, and this is a big priority for the government. Is it easy to fix? Sounds like it would be pretty easy. Snap your fingers and have this. But like anything, this takes productive discussions at all levels. And I know Solicitor General Minister Kersner is very focused on this as well, to get solutions in place, and the Attorney General Doug Downey. So, and working with police forces all across the province. So we'll continue to, hopefully make progress here to get the right system in place and provide fair justice, but also provide a system that effectively keeps those off the street who shouldn't be on the street.
Right. Now I'm going to put you on the spot here, Rick, and ask, maybe you'll tip your hand, maybe you won't. You have every right to say no comment, but I'll ask the question anyway. We've got a new addiction treatment center coming here in Owen Sound at the old Bayshore School, which is run by the hospital, Bright Shores, but it's not open yet. Can we expect an announcement?
I certainly hope so in the near future. How's that for? I'm really
that I'll take.
Okay.
That I'll take. That I'll
I'm
take.
really
Because
excited.
You didn't say
about,
no.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to see. In fact, there was a presentation. Minister Tabolo was over last fall in Laura Bay, I believe, and I saw, for the first time, I saw the kinds of services and the facility that will be when it opens. It's absolutely extraordinary. And I think just a great example of turning an existing facility, evolving, that to meeting a need again that didn't exist, not that long ago. So this is going to be a fantastic facility, provide great services and to important clients, and be well, it's right in the middle of the community, but there'll be security there, as there should be, appropriately. So I sure hope we're going to, when it opens, see that open very soon and be a really, really significant, have a really significant impact on the whole community.
Indeed. And I have interviewed the staff from Bright Shores who are responsible for that particular service, and they're very optimistic and very hopeful. But okay, let's see when the keys get passed over. and that'll be, of course, and you'll probably get an invitation.
I just might, so I look forward to that. I'm hopeful it's not in the too distant future, David, truly, because it's been, like anything, worked on for quite a while, and we really want to see that open and as soon as possible.
I like that. I'll take it, and I'll hold you to it the next time we talk.
That's okay.
So we've got about a minute and a half left. You're looking forward to this session of the legislature?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, look, not being in our home community during the week, having to go into Toronto, that part is no joy and parts of the show. But look, it's about getting things done, and the issues that we've talked about this morning, be it healthcare, we haven't talked about, housing related, the economy, all these things. What I'm very pleased, and you don't know until you're there, but we have a team that truly is focused on getting things done. And look, mistakes have been made too, and we have a team that recognizes the green belt and is an example that we can debate that forever, but it wasn't going to. So we went back and so that's I like the willingness to reconsider things as well. But we're driven by outcomes, and so I'm excited to get back there and get things done and try and address some of these challenges head on and make life better for Ontarians and for the folks in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound.
And with that, Rick, thank you for your time this morning. Look forward to hearing more about all the things we've talked about. We didn't even touch on housing, but hey, we've got another time coming up, so we'll talk more about that later. Thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. We'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.